good game in which both Steph and Klay scored 30 points. It's the first time in their 11 years as teammates that this team loses a game in which both of them scored 30. They had won the previous 13. So that series continues. Meanwhile, there could be a sweep tonight. The Nets down 3-0. They're at home in Brooklyn taking on the Celtics, and they've looked just candidly awful. And if you're wondering why, here's Kyrie Irving offering one explanation.
Being in a series like this with guys that, we're all just trying to gel. And usually you're gelling around the right time, and that team in the other locker room is gelling at the right time. They've been gelling since Christmas. So for us, we're just in a new experience as a group, and we just got to respect that.
All right, so I was sitting next to the great Jalen Rose, who jumps in with us live from Detroit this morning. When we all heard that, you and Stephen A. and I were sitting together. None of us had heard him say that until they played it for us live on the air. Your reaction was strong. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, good morning, Legs. Good morning, Greeny. And here's the deal. Sometimes, and this is an old saying, I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are so loud. And Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant must wake up and look in the mirror today and realize something. Kyrie Irving had a chance to play with LeBron James, had a chance to play with the Boston Celtics, and he didn't want to. Kevin Durant had a chance to run with the Splash Brothers. He did. Won 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs. They wanted their own situation. They wanted to be the lead dogs. So now they have that with the Nets. And I said that on January 7th, of this year, Legs, that the Golden State Warriors are better without KD. And people thought I was bugging. Well, how about this? The Boston Celtics clearly are better without Kyrie Irving today as well. And they were looking for love at the point guard spot. Kyrie Irving, Kemba Walker, Dennis Schroeder, and their guy was right there in front of them, Marcus Smart. White collar is Kyrie, Greeny. Oohs and ahs, shaking and baking, loud buckets. Blue-collar toughness is Marcus Smart. Led the team in assists, led the team in steals, defensive player of the year. That became the identity of these Boston Celtics. We're not dealing with excuses.
And you know what else he is? And I want to pick up on that thought there. He's also a leader, because when this team needed to be called out, he was the one who was willing to do it back in November, and they've turned their season around completely. And so to your previous point, when Kyrie was playing with LeBron, he didn't have to be the leader. When KD was playing with Steph Curry, he didn't have to be the leader. Now this is their own situation, and look what a mess it has become, Jalen, and I don't think that's a coincidence.
Not at all, and hindsight can always be 20/20, but you recall me saying this. I felt like if a Ben Simmons, James Harden deal was going to get done, it was best to happen in the offseason. You just haven't seen Ben Simmons play basketball since last June. He struggled when you saw him play, and we know he's dealing with a back injury because he just got a shot in his back. And for everybody that's never played sports, and Legs, correct me if I'm wrong, athletes ain't lining up to get shots. When somebody does that, that's something serious. And if he was going to play Greeny, Saturday would have been the game when they had a chance to go down 0-3. Playing tonight, yeah, it'll be good to see him in uniform on the sideline. Yes, it'll be good to see him back out on the floor. But the reality of it is, this series is over. And no matter what he did tonight, it could only have a negative impact. If he plays well, people say, well, it wasn't any pressure. What if he gets injured? There's so many things. I would love to see him out on the court. But this season is over for the Nets. And it's so very over when I see some of my favorite New Yorkers who would rather be in the Garden. Y'all know Mary J. Blige and Spike Lee rather be in the Garden. They was at the Barclays Center just trying to get some good basketball in. And now the Lakers, the LA teams, and the New York teams are both watching the playoffs as the Nets and the Knicks have the same amount of playoff wins so far this year.
That is, I mean, there's no arguing against it. Go ahead, Legs, pick it up.
You know, Ben Simmons, think about this. If he had played in Game 4, if he was going to play tonight, and they were to lose, He would be involved in a very strange trivia question.
Yes.
As the only player in history to play in consecutive games as his team's final game of the season.
Right.
I mean, it's just
He'd have been eliminated in consecutive games.
Exactly right. I've been saying this from the beginning. I actually said it on the air the day after Game 7 against the Atlanta Hawks. I said Ben Simmons will never play again in Philadelphia. I knew it then, and it had nothing to do with what Joel Embiid or Doc Rivers said at the press conference that night. It had to do with his knowledge of what he just showed that fan base, that media coverage in that market, what he showed his teammates in that locker room. He was exposed as a guy that was afraid of the moment. And he shrunk in a way that we have not seen really. 5 fourth quarters as a point guard, not taking a shot in a series like that when you're favored. So I knew it then. Now, we get into the fall, we get into the midseason. At some point, you shut it down. All talk of it for the year. Certainly by the time you got into March and April, you're going to expect a guy with all of these issues from a confidence standpoint and all of these issues that he has in terms of dealing with pressure, coming back as a player under a bigger microscope than any player has been in recent memory and jump into this fray with this dysfunctional offense against this team, there is no way I expected to see Ben Simmons. Now listen, if they somehow win a couple of games, at some point he can't put off the inevitable. We're going to see Ben Simmons, but the best thing for him is to not only not play, also, how about sit somewhere near the end of the bench so we're not talking about you during the game and what you happen to choose from a stylistic standpoint that night. Just stop drawing attention to yourself.
He is correct. The outfits are extremely look at me, look at me, look at me. He wants to do everything but play in the series. Look, Jalen, let me move past that for a minute here because Ben Simmons is only a small piece of the puzzle. Kevin Durant is one of the greatest players of all time. He may be the greatest pure scorer that we've ever seen in the history of the game. I've never seen a player of his magnitude be completely silenced the way he has been in this series. How do you explain it, and what does it mean?
I want to make sure I explain this the correct way by giving the Boston Celtics all of the credit. They've been the best defensive team in the NBA since January 1st. And I want to highlight Jason Tatum in particular. He's improved as a leader, as a passer, as a scorer, and as a defender. How many times do you see KD raise up a mid-range and think, no one can ever block that shot? He's 7 foot tall. Well, Jason Tatum has done it twice in this series. And also the bigs, Al Horford, Daniel Tice, they've done a terrific job. Williams, and now Time Lord, who returned. All of those bigs have done a great job of reaching, blocking, reacting, forcing KD to play in the crowd. And here's the last thing, and Leg's gonna appreciate this. It's messing with KD mentally that Jason Tatum giving him buckets. There was a play early in the series. I think it was game 1 or game 2. Jason Tatum was on the right baseline. He was posting up KD. Did a turnaround jump shot on KD like he was 6'4". And I was like, oh, how about taking him off the dribble, getting to his spot and being clutch? And so I want to give the Celtics credit for frustrating KD, making him look disinterested, and having a player that could get a shot at any time, Legs, only attempt one shot in the fourth quarter. That means you tapped out.
No, he's right. I mean, and look at what Kevin Durant is saying on that end of the floor. We've talked a lot about that, but I want to focus a little bit on Tatum. What was the last piece for Jason Tatum to be able to achieve true superstar status in this league? He had to be able to create more separation off the dribble. That was the one thing missing, right? To get into that category, Jalen, you have to be a guy that we can say this about. There's no win for the defense ever against this particular player. That's where Kevin Durant has been most of his career. LeBron has operated in that space. Jason Tatum wasn't quite there because you felt like you could still jam him up and he was going to be, 2 dribbles this direction or 2 dribbles this direction. Now he has the ability to go back and forth, to counter whatever you do defensively. He knows where he wants to go, and he's worked on his handles to such an extent he can get anywhere he needs to on the court. The escapability factor was the last piece to add. He has added it. He has pulled up a seat to the big table, and there's no better way to do it than against this particular player. 2 best offensive small forwards in the game. You're looking at a legend You're looking at Kevin Durant dead in the eye, and you had to outplay him, and he's done it 3 consecutive games. Jason Tatum has arrived as a true superstar in this league.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. I wanted to get Marcus in here, but it's just all too crazy. It is unlike any situation I can ever remember. Jalen and Jacoby later today, and I will see you this weekend. Thank you, my man. Enjoy. Jalen's in Detroit with us here, the best. In the meantime, back to the NFL we will go next. With his future in limbo, Baker says hello to Oklahoma again. Will he finally say goodbye to Cleveland this week?